started to develop this solution-focused model, and it started with this idea of asking about what you don't want to change, and from that you build some techniques.
Right. I mean, it was, we did it when the family came back, was changed with that question. As usual, where did that change come from? You know, it wasn't from our polyocular view here. It seemed to, they talked about exceptions that made changes. So we did it again and again and again, and we began to realize, oh, we've got something here. We need to ask more about what they don't want to change and to start talking about the changes that they started to bring in. And I have videotapes, I had videotapes, I don't have them anymore, where after this happened, I looked at cases from before we made that change. And there would be maybe 3 sessions of just exploring the problem before the interventions would begin to take. Once we started right away with looking for the exceptions, it cut 3 sessions off every treatment, at least. That's how big a difference it made. Not to talk, more and more about this problem. And it wasn't history we talked about, it was the problem.
Yes, okay, so in the first, when you are problem focused, it was the problem you were talking about. It was not taking in detail about their life or something, but it was really focusing.
Why do you think you have the problem, and it was more about all the details, the behaviors around the problem, and, the systemic type of questions that Milan used a lot, and trying to figure out what's the one, still with a little bit of that MRI influence, what's the pattern we can change. That was, we were very influenced by Erickson. Steve was very influenced by Erickson. And actually we experimented with hypnosis, not with the clients, but with each other, because we wanted to see if that might work. What could we learn from that? Steve was very interested in that. And a man named James Wilkes came from London after, I don't know, 82 or 83, and he had come from that area, and he joined us, but he didn't stay for too long. So Erickson, Bateson, and I feel Milan was an influence. I see it in Steve's writing. He did not see it that way, but I really always, and I think Marilyn also felt that there was a lot of influence from the Milan model. And one thing that happened that sort of reinforced that for me was, it must have been either 1980 or 1981. We were just a really new, excited group. And Steve said, this thing came in the mail, and it was a brochure for a workshop of 3-day, actually a 3-day seminar in Connecticut, which is on the east coast of the United States, and here we are in the middle of the country. It was going to be in a private mansion in Connecticut, and it was going to be it's a sort of a continuous thing with some presentations, but with people able to talk with each other and show their work, and all the biggest names in the field were there. Lyman Wynn and, oh my gosh, the 2 of them, Milan Chechin and Boscolo were there, and I'm trying to think. Lynn Hoffman, Peggy Pan, names like that were there. And Steve said, I don't know how we got this how we got this brochure, even that we're on their mailing list. And it sounded, well, boy, we could learn a lot of what everybody's doing, what's going on. And we decided to go. All 6 of us went. And we were terrified because these are famous people, and Steve had taken some of our tapes and he was going to show them. It was sort of a very courageous thing to do. And the second night, it was really interesting, really, because we were meeting people who had achieved, reached the top of the field. It was very interesting. And second night, after dinner, people showed tapes, and Steve put our tape on. And Steve acted like he had had too much wine. I don't know if he had too much wine, or whether because he was nervous, or whether he figured if he acts like he had too much wine, then people won't take him too seriously. And if they thought it was terrible, then they would say, well, he's had too much wine. But Lyman Wynn was watching, and he immediately, he always recognized special things in the future. And he invited Insu and Steve to breakfast. And from then on, he was our biggest fan. He would come out to Milwaukee. He promoted us. At a meeting a few years later, he said publicly in a big talk, Steve DeShazer is in developing research in a different direction.